Welcome to the Patient First Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin. And as always, I'm glad that you're here. And we have a unique show today coming from the floor of the Yankee Dental Congress with an amazing guest today. Melissa Turner is the Lady Gaga of dentistry, speaker, influencer, master of the Denobi Awards and Oral Health Prevention Summit that we just had, or you just had. That was a phenomenal event that everybody should look into. And so thank you very much for having the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Bryan. And I told him he can only say that I'm the Lady Gaga of dentistry if Gaga still has a good reputation. But then neither of us knew the answer to that, so he just went with it. We're good, right? We're good. We'll roll with that.
Yes, and I don't know that much about Lady Gaga, but I would only call you the Lady Gaga of dentistry in the most positive way, because there's a lot of people that are influencers in dentistry, but you're using your influence to move the industry in such a positive, uniquely positive way.
And that's how I see Gaga, right? That's exactly how I see her, as moving it forward in a positive way, which is my goal. Yeah. And she's killer on the stage.
Oh.
Which
now
someday.
You're expanding beyond my knowledge of the Gaga. Yeah, but the Denobi Awards. Let's start there, because I think a lot of people have seen the Denobi Awards. They know, but they might not know exactly what the focus is. Can you talk a little bit about the Denobi Awards and how that's moving the industry in a positive direction?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm co-founder of the Denobi Awards with one of my very good friends, Sonia Dunbar. She's known as the geriatric tooth fairy. And if you've ever heard her speak, you know that she's killer on the stage too. She's another Gaga. But what we did, Bryan, was probably about 10 years ago, we did an entire review of pretty much all of the award programs in dental. And we noticed that most of them were for dentists, or they were for lifetime achievement awards. So do all this.
You have to be my age.
Maybe a little younger. No.
Okay. That's right. Yeah.
But I always say you don't want to win an award when you're old and gray and on your deathbed.
Yep.
You want to win an award when you're in the moment doing good things. And so Sonia and I got together, and we were going to take our good old time to launch Denobi Awards. And then COVID hit. And all of dentistry we got sad, we got depressed. And so she and I said, let's go ahead and just fast track this. So we had the first gala in 2021. And the unofficial tagline is that it celebrates the unsung heroes in dentistry. So our goal is, as long as you have a role in dental, you can apply. So you don't have to be a clinician, you can be a student. And our goal is to highlight the advocacy work, highlight the folks that don't always get honored for the things that they're doing. And it's amazing because, Bryan, we have maybe one or two winners every year that are from around the world. And so to me, it just makes my heart happy, my spirit happy that we could have that kind of difference making happen in dental. And so it's really a way to raise up DEI, LGBTQ+, women, those who normally don't get recognized. It's not a popularity contest. It's not a social media voted contest. It's one that is held in high esteem. And then we like to roll out the red carpet, get our makeup done, and one of the things that we do every year is we release a short list so folks can get prepared. They know that they're in the running to be one of the winners. And after the shortlist is released, Sonia and I typically will get several calls that say, Sonia and Melissa, I'm not really like an ego person. I really don't want to go up on stage and win an award. That's not who I am. That's what they say. And we're like, yeah, duh. That's why we want to give you the award, right? Because
that's cool.
Do it for the passion. Do it for your why, the people you're serving. So that's the long and short of Denobi.
No, that's great. And you're involved in a lot of aspects of dentistry. Very much virtual care, Denobi Awards, speaking, influencing, teledentistry. So what got you into, and this is a somewhat disingenuous question for me to ask, like so many different aspects of the industry.
Yeah. I remember one time I was sitting in a meeting about business growth and business development. And the session was it was not a dental meeting. It was specifically one about being an entrepreneur and learning, okay, what product should I release? What should I focus on as an entrepreneur? And one of the pieces of advice they said was, think about your life and think about the times in your life where you say, oh, that's just too easy. That's just too easy. Like my husband always says to me, Melissa, I could never create something from nothing. I could never create a product from nothing or build a business from nothing. That's just not who he is. And for me, for you too, I'm sure, it's just too easy. It's just where I am, where I go. And so I am all over the place right now. But then when you think of it that way, it's like the things that I know that I am the strongest in that are just easy for me. Even before ChatGPT, writing an article was like, oh, this is too easy. And that's how I built my career, is really starting and just focusing on articles, getting my name out there. And then years later, it's evolved.
Yeah, I think that's great. My coach, Dan Sullivan, says that's your unique ability.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you brought that up because I just literally had a conversation with somebody, very successful entrepreneur in dentistry, who was telling me, Bryan, wouldn't it be better if you did it this way? And I was like, for you, yes. For me, no. Because I'm a blunt instrument that just calls balls and strikes as I see it. And if I think you're wrong, I'm going to say, I think you're wrong.
Now, were you always like that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. My very first memory is telling my mother no. And it felt so good. So yes. And it's not,
that's funny.
Whether or not I'm happy about my unique ability.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And what I love the way you answered the question because it was authentically like, I'm doing what I'm best at. And that's different for you than for me than for anybody else. So yeah, what a great answer. So like when it comes to, we were talking a little bit before about virtual care, teledentistry, because that is an aspect of the industry where, you know, I've built teledentistry platforms and they've been hot and cold. And I think it's very similar to AI in that people think it's either going to be like the panacea or it's completely worthless.
A miracle
And it's all as like everything is in between. So could you describe virtual care, teledentistry as someone who's really obviously seeped into this and then how people can leverage it today?
So I think it's helpful for everyone to understand, like, why am I about teledentistry first? So as a hygienist, I spent many years in public health. And in the early 2010s or something like that, I was leading a mobile dental program. And it was right when teledentistry started to be talked about. The CDT codes came out for it. There were a few teledental companies out there that it was actually starting to take up some space in the industry. And so we implemented teledentistry into this program. And the amount of results we got, the transformation that it gave this small nonprofit program was unbelievable. And I said, this is not just for public health. This is not just for people in the country who need to communicate with a dentist. This is for everyone. This is for the mom who has 2 kids and cannot find the time to take that kid in if they fell down and bumped their tooth, right?
Yep.
This is for 100%. The 80-year-old who can't drive anymore, really, but they need to have that checkup with a dentist. So since then, what I saw was there was a lack of support for people who wanted to pursue teledentistry or add a teledental division to their practice. And so we started the National Mobile and Teledentistry Conference. We started the American Mobile and Teledentistry Alliance. Some people will be involved in a conference and they love them. Others will never, and they want to be a member or something. So we tried to create all these resources to help educate the industry as a whole on what teledentistry is. And you and I were talking earlier too. Yeah. We're not even going to call it teledentistry anymore. Virtual care is probably a better term for it. And like you said yesterday, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, 2 days ago, when we were on the panel together, you said that teledentistry is more of a marketing verbiage versus virtual care, right? That's what you said?
Yeah. I'll tell you how we developed our first teledentistry platform, which is, we were one of the first ones too in the space. I was at my son's baseball game and he was getting up to bat. And my phone rang, and I just saw no caller ID, the phone number. And I recognized the phone number from a patient that did like a crown every quarter. And every time she called me that night and said, it hurts. And I go, yes, I know. Is it going to get better? Yes. Okay. So a predetermined conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, my son went as a bat. I And I have that phone, I looking at the phone number, and I have a decision to make. I can either not pick it up and then be sitting and thinking about this conversation that I have. And then, by the way, calling the patient back. And or I can pick it up. So I pick it up, have the conversation that was predetermined, and miss my son's double. I went, I'm never doing this again. So that's why I created Teledentistry, purely for my own selfishly. And then, of course, the irony is once I came up with this application, I'm like, you have 5 other dentists. I'm never taking call again. So I never had to do it again anyway. But so it's not just convenient for patients, which is massively huge. It's convenient for us. And so bringing it back to your question about teledentistry, when we first rolled out our teledentistry application, we didn't call it teledentistry, but we had asynchronous forms that did all sorts of things. And we had a competitor, this is back in my RDHEP days, steal something that we did, from an idea. No, it's totally fine. They were inspired by us.
They happily stole it.
And they gave it a much better name than we did. Okay. And so we're talking, this is like 2017. And so I got mad, and I literally went into where all the people in my technology company worked. And I said, we're not leaving here until we come up with a better name for something we're doing. And we came up with Teledentistry. And for 3 years, nobody ever asked us about teledentistry. It was just a bullet point on our website. Then COVID hit, and suddenly I was on 6 webinars a day, and I was on the news networks talking about teledentistry because I got upset about somebody came up with a better name for something than we did. So I would say now, teledentistry was already like a term that was starting to be used, but it wasn't very popular at the time. So that's that. As we talked about before, I think as teledentistry as anything you're doing to communicate with the patient outside the walls. Would you agree?
I would. And I'm sure one of the questions you get, because I get this all the time, is what is teledentistry? I can't ever do a root canal over my phone, that kind of thing. And I always say, okay, let's keep it simple. Teledentistry is simply communication. And then I remove it from the dental practice itself. And I say, think about all the communication tools you use in your regular life. You use virtual calls, you Snapchat, like texting, all these things. I said, why can't you incorporate that into your practice? And that is what teledentistry is. But I'm moving more toward the phrase of virtual care, because that also then incorporates healthcare. And as we form a more integrated aspect into our schools or healthcare facilities, you know, it just makes more sense. It's not limiting, it's expansive instead. But I do think, so we saw that spike over COVID. Without COVID, I think we would have seen just this steady, gradual incline of virtual care. But I really think, and you'll have to tell me what you think about this, but one of the things I always say about the business model of dentistry is that it's very antiquated. It's not efficient. It's based on 100-year-old practice, and we're getting there. We're moving things along. But if a dentist would understand, or a practice owner would understand how to incorporate just even virtual care, just a nugget of it in the practice, it'll make it more efficient. And so one of the ways I see this is as the boomers are leaving the practice. Right now, even my parents are aging and they can't drive. They won't drive in the rain. They won't drive in the snow. They won't drive after dark, all these things. And so one of the things I see is if we can get our boomer patients understanding how to use a virtual call, they can still be active patients of our practice, even if they can't always get there. Same thing with these college kids. We often lose college kids. Once they go to college in a different state, they come back with bombed out mouths because they're not seeing us as frequently. Virtual care is another aspect there that can just help retain the patients that you already have. And that's where I think we're missing the ball on it, or most dentists who do not use virtual care are missing the ball right now on those two things specifically.
I think what happened during COVID was that we had this, COVID was an accelerant. It didn't change anything. But unfortunately, I think for teledentistry is that it became so popular before there were the systems in place like you to help people integrate this into their practice. And there's so many aspects of care, just something as simple as Invisalign check, following up on TMD treatments. But if we just step back and just say, I feel like you're saying, just like taking care of patients, our job as healthcare as oral health professionals is to take care of the oral health of the population.
Maybe
right?
not on the weekends.
Yeah, correct. Our job. Well, I would guess that you probably are doing it on the weekends too, my friend. But if that's the case, so I graduated from dental school right before the turn of the century in 1959. Right? So 20, almost 26 years ago. And 5.5 years ago, the amount of the population that didn't see a dentist regularly was about 50%. Today, it's about 50%. So regardless of how well you're seeing the patients in your chair, half our population is not going to a dental practice, right? That alone makes me think maybe we should do something to reach out people outside our dental practices, right?
Yeah.
And why don't people go to a dentist? You could blame cost. However, cost I would argue, is a function of value. A lot of times they feel ashamed and they don't know where to start.
Yes.
Right? If you give them a virtual way to reach out to you, it's like that safe, easy first step into your practice.
Yeah.
And by the way, those patients are the ones that need to have implants and extractions and root canals and the procedures that most dentists are looking at doing.
That's right.
Or they're in rural areas like you're talking about, and we should get them obviously you can't do a root canal or even do a treatment plan.
We didn't talk about AI yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Let's just say you still need to have the patient to come to your office to get a comprehensive workout and treatment plan. You can at least take a look at, I don't know about you, but most of the time I can look at photos of a person's teeth and have about a 90% chance of knowing directionally what we need to do for the first step of treatment.
And that's something folks often underestimate. What can I see from an iPhone photo that my patient takes? You can actually see a lot, right? Which is exactly what you just said.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you layer AI on top of that, and you'll see a lot more. But really, it's not even about what you can treatment plan. It's about the conversation you can initiate with the patient to get them in the door. Or if, like you're saying, emergencies. Yeah. However, I do believe that dental practices, oral health professionals need support in rolling these services out, which I think you do a bit of, right?
I do. Yeah. All health dental practices implement teledentistry. And it's never, they always come to it thinking it's going to be this huge thing. They have to rewire all their systems. And it's not. We start with one small aspect. Let's do one appointment a week. That's it, virtually. Let's pick which one it's going to be. That quick look and see appointment. Or sometimes in dental practices, especially right now, all the patients that we've lost over COVID that have gone inactive, like you were saying, this is a great way to just, hey, Johnny, we just want to check in on that filling that
Dr. Laskin screwed up.
Dr. Laskin screwed up over COVID. Yeah, he wasn't quite sure about that line. And we just want to check it out on tooth number 30. Can we just have a quick call with Dr. Laskin? 5 minutes. That's all we need. And that gets them the funnel and just get them back in, right? Gets them back in the system. And then they appreciate it. And they think they're on top of the world because, oh my gosh, my dentist, he called me, or she, or they called me, right? So it gets them back in that funnel. And I think we lose a lot of patients each year. And sometimes we take it personally because we think, oh, they didn't like us. They didn't like us as a hygienist. They didn't like how we did things as a dentist. They didn't think that filling was good enough. When really they're just scared or feeling ashamed. It took me, so I have a 10 and 8-year-old, and it took me 5 years to get them to the dentist. They didn't have a dental appointment for the first 5 years of life. And I felt ashamed. And I'm like, okay, I'm a hygienist. I know they're fine. But COVID hit and we moved and all this stuff happened. Life happened. And if I feel ashamed, I can't imagine the patients. Can't imagine.
I think anxiety and shame are two of the most under focused on epidemics in dentistry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both for providers and patients.
Yeah. I was thinking of patients, but absolutely. You're 100% right. You're doing a lot of great stuff. Where can people go to find out more about teledentistry, the Denobi Awards, all the great work you're doing?
Yeah. So I have a website that kind of pulls some of it together. That's melissakturner.com. But you can find me on social media at The Tooth Girl on Insta. No TikTok. I don't even know if it's up today. Is TikTok still working? I don't know. What's happening in the world today? I don't know. But LinkedIn is another good resource for me too. And then you can simply just Google Denobi Awards or Teledentistry Conference, and then ours should pop up depending on the SEO that day, right?
Yeah, sure. And we'll put links to all of those around, around this podcast. Melissa, thanks so much for having a great conversation.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bryan.